My name is Victoria Langford, and the night I realized responsibility had ruined my life was the night I sat in a hospital waiting room, holding my mother's purse in my lap while my brother slipped out the back door to meet his dealer. She'd collapsed at the dinner table, chest tight, face gray, and I had called the ambulance, rode with her, filled out the paperwork, while my brother, Daniel, the golden child who never lifted a finger, vanished. The nurse came out and asked, "Are you the next of kin? Are you the responsible one?" And something inside me cracked. Responsible. Always responsible. The word felt like a curse I'd never chosen but had been forced to carry. And in that moment, I vowed I wouldn't just carry it anymore. I'd make them all pay for chaining it around my neck. From as far back as I can remember, responsibility was stitched into me like a birthmark. Growing up in Bristol, my father used to say, "Victoria, you're my rock. You'll hold this family together." At 10 years old, I was packing lunches for Daniel because he'd forget. At 12, I was babysitting cousins while my aunts went out drinking. At 16, when my parents fought, I was the one dragging my mother to bed and covering for my father's absences. Responsibility wasn't asked of me, it was demanded. And every time I tried to say no, I was told the same thing. "You're the strong one. You can handle it." But handling it came at a price. While Daniel partied, I studied. While my cousins traveled, I worked shifts at a cafe to pay off bills my parents neglected. Even when I went to university, the family found ways to chain me back. Calls about money, pleas for help, emergencies that always seemed to fall on my shoulders. "You're the responsible one, Vic. We know we can rely on you." They said it like a compliment. To me, it was a cage. The betrayals were subtle at first. Daniel taking credit for things I paid for. My mother boasting to friends about how she helped me through uni, when in truth, I'd taken 3 jobs and nearly collapsed from exhaustion. My father guilt-tripping me when I refused to cover another one of Daniel's debts. "You know your brother isn't as strong as you. You wouldn't want to see him on the street, would you?" And I gave in. Again and again. Because that's what the responsible one does. But responsibility without gratitude rots. It festers into bitterness. And by the time I was 31, bitterness was all I had. No savings. No partner. Because every relationship I tried crumbled under the weight of my family's constant needs. No peace. Just exhaustion, resentment, and the gnawing fear that my life was slipping away, while everyone else used me as their safety net. The breaking point wasn't just the hospital night. That was the final straw, yes, but the pile of straws beneath it was years thick. Daniel had borrowed thousands from me, promising to pay it back, never returning a penny. My parents had let him. Encouraged him even. My aunts and uncles had leaned on me for favors, errands, babysitting, all without thanks. I wasn't Victoria to them. I was a tool. A utility. The responsible one. And sitting in that sterile waiting room, the fluorescent lights buzzing, the smell of antiseptic in my nose, I felt something shift inside me. I thought, if responsibility is all they see me as, then I'll show them just how responsible I can be. I'll be responsible for their downfall. That thought burned through me like fire, and for the first time in my life, responsibility didn't feel like a curse. It felt like a weapon. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the hospital bed, watching the steady rise and fall of my mother's chest, while my mind spun like a machine left on too long. Daniel hadn't come back. Not once. Not to check on her. Not to see if she was alive. He texted me at 3 in the morning. "Everything okay?" 2 words. That was all. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, and I realized that every choice I'd made, every sacrifice, every compromise, had led me to this exact moment. Alone, carrying the weight of a family that would never carry me back. When morning came, I walked into the hospital cafeteria, ordered a black coffee, and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through years of messages. Begging, guilt-tripping demands. "Vic, can you send me £200 just until payday? You're the only one who understands. Please don't tell Mum. If you loved your brother, you'd help him." The words stacked up like bricks on my chest. And beneath them all, my replies, always the same. "I'll sort it. Of course. Don't worry, I've got it covered." Got it covered. The motto of my life. I began saving everything. Screenshots, bank transfers, voicemails where Daniel slurred promises he never kept. I created a folder on my laptop, called it Balance. And for the first time, it wasn't about bailing them out, it was about building a case. A case against them, against the people who had shackled me with responsibility and called it love. Back at home, the evidence piled up quickly. Unpaid loans. Photos of Daniel's nights out while I was covering his rent. Texts from my father twisting the knife. Don't let your brother go hungry. You've always been better with money. Receipts of the times I'd paid for Mom's medication because she forgot her card. I documented everything. My entire adult life, reframed not as duty, but as exploitation. And the more I compiled, the colder I became. Daniel, oblivious as ever, came by 2 days later. He smelled like stale smoke and cheap cologne. You look tired, sis, he said, as if the irony didn't choke him. He flopped on my sofa, put his feet on the coffee table, and asked, so about that loan. Something inside me snapped so quietly it was almost beautiful. I smiled. Not my real smile. The one I'd used at work when clients screamed at me. Polite, controlled, terrifying if you knew me well enough. Of course, Daniel, I said softly. But this time let's make it official. He frowned. Official? I pulled out a printed contract, slid it across the table. A repayment plan. Interest included. A clause that if he defaulted, I'd take him to court. His eyes widened. You're joking. I leaned forward. Do I look like I'm joking? He laughed, then scowled, then tried guilt. You're my sister. Family doesn't do this. I held his gaze. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't drain you dry. Family doesn't disappear while Mom's in the hospital. His jaw tightened, and for the first time I saw it, the flicker of fear. He realized the balance had shifted. He stormed out, slamming the door, muttering that I was heartless. I sat there in the silence afterward, my hands steady, my heart strangely calm. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling to fix things. I was the one holding the strings. The next phase was slower, more deliberate. I started saying no. Mom asked me to cover another bill, no. My aunt needed help watching the kids, no. Dad called drunk, asking me to pick him up, no. Each no was a stone laid in a new foundation. A boundary built brick by brick. They pushed back, of course. Accused me of being selfish, cold, ungrateful. But I'd learned something powerful. Their opinion of me didn't matter. Their survival depended on me, not the other way around. At work, I found myself sharper, more focused. Colleagues who once dumped their tasks on me hesitated now. I started logging everything, the same way I did at home. When my boss tried to blame me for a missed deadline, I calmly pulled out time-stamped emails showing I'd covered my end. His face flushed, and he never tried it again. Responsibility had turned into armor, into ammunition. But revenge wasn't just about boundaries. It was about exposure, about showing the world who they really were, without me shielding them. And I knew exactly how to do it. One night, I sat at my desk, surrounded by the glow of my laptop, and drafted a letter. Not to them, but to the people who still believed in their lies. My father's drinking buddies who thought he was a proud, supportive dad. My aunts who thought Daniel was the charming younger brother with potential. My mother's church friends who praised her for holding the family together. I wrote the truth. Attached receipts, screenshots, proof. I wasn't cruel. I didn't embellish. I simply revealed. The next Sunday, I printed copies, slipped them into envelopes, and left them at doorsteps, in mail slots, under windscreen wipers. Anonymous. Clean. Precise. By evening, the phone calls began. Mom shrieking. Daniel raging. Dad threatening. I let them all go to voicemail. Because for once, the responsible one wasn't answering. The fallout was immediate and vicious. Within days, the carefully constructed image of my family began to crumble. My mother called me in tears, her voice shaking with fury and humiliation. How could you do this to me, Victoria? Do you have any idea what the ladies at church are saying? I sat in my kitchen, sipping tea, and listened without responding. For years, I had been her buffer, the one to keep her secrets hidden. Now the truth was out, and she was choking on it. Daniel was worse. He showed up at my flat unannounced, pounding on the door until my neighbor threatened to call the police. "You've ruined me," he shouted through the wood. "No one will lend me money now. No one will even talk to me." His voice cracked with desperation. "We're family. You don't destroy family." I pressed record on my phone, documenting every word. Then, calm and cold, I opened the door just enough to speak. "You destroyed yourself, Daniel. I just stopped protecting you." I shut it before he could lunge inside. His fists hammered a few more times, but eventually, silence settled. Word spread quickly. My father's friends turned their backs, no longer willing to buy his excuses or drinks. My mother's social circle withered, her reputation reduced to whispers about the daughter, who'd finally snapped. And Daniel, my brother, the eternal golden child, found himself exposed for what he really was, a parasite. His friends stopped answering his calls. His dealer cut him off. Without me as his guarantor, his safety net, he had nothing. For the first time in my life, I watched them scramble without me. And it was intoxicating. But my revenge didn't end with reputation. I wanted justice, tangible and lasting. I met with a solicitor, handed over every record I'd kept, loans, transfers, the forged signature. The case against Daniel was airtight. Forgery is a crime, and no amount of tears or excuses could erase the evidence. He was summoned to court within weeks, and when the notice arrived at my mother's house, she rang me, sobbing that I was sending her son to prison. I felt the familiar pang of guilt, the instinct to fix things. But it passed. "No, Mum," I said firmly. "Daniel did this to himself. He signed my name. He stole from me. This is his responsibility." The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. At work, something unexpected happened. My colleagues began to notice the change in me. I wasn't the soft-shouldered fixer anymore. I started pushing back when tasks were dumped on me. I stopped covering for others' mistakes. At first, they bristled, but slowly, respect replaced exploitation. My boss, who once saw me as the invisible glue, began to realize I wasn't afraid to expose his failings too. Responsibility had shifted. It was no longer my curse. It was my leverage. The climax came one night when Daniel cornered me outside my flat. Desperation etched into every line of his face. "Please, Vic," he begged, his voice ragged. "I'll change. Just drop the charges. Don't do this to me." I looked at him, the boy I used to tie shoelaces for, the man who had drained me dry, and felt nothing but clarity. "You've taken everything from me," I said quietly. "My money, my peace, my time. Now it's your turn to pay." I stepped past him, calm and steady, leaving him standing there under the streetlight, broken in a way I had been for years. Only this time, it wasn't my job to fix it. The court case was swift. Daniel was ordered to repay me, placed under probation, his record permanently marked. My mother tried to shield him, my father tried to bluff, but neither could undo what had been done. Their safety net was gone, and they had no one to blame but themselves. And me? I felt lighter. Not happy, not yet, but free. Free from the endless cycle of responsibility that had defined my life. Free from the guilt that had chained me to their failures. Free to finally live for myself. Now when people call me the responsible one, I smile. Not because it's true, but because they have no idea what it costs me. And what it costs my family when I finally stopped paying the price. If you enjoyed this revenge story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from.